evening from Wolfville and Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, where about a week and a half ago, we welcomed over 800 new grads to the alumni family. And Elder Joe Michael was on hand to remind them that they are the stars in our sky and that they have an amazing future ahead of them. And where we are definitely experiencing spring in this beautiful part of Turtle Island. My name is Oonagh Proudfoot and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the Executive Director of Alumni Affairs in the Office of Advancement at Acadia. And it's a pleasure to be here this evening with Matt Corkum, class of 2006, to shine a spotlight on Accessibility Week. Now, before I introduce Matt, I'm just going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. I used to crack the joke that I would let you all know where the bathroom is, but that's getting a little bit old now that we're 3-4 years into these virtual events. But we'll ask folks if you have questions to hold them until after Matt's presentation. You can answer them or ask them rather in a number of ways. You can certainly raise your virtual hand and then unmute yourself and ask the question when I call on you. You can activate your camera and raise your actual hand and ask the question yourself if you'd like, and you can write it in the chat function as well. And I'll keep an eye on the chat function and read any questions that are posted there. And we always, of course, encourage involvement and conversation because, as we know, the alumni community is an intimate group of people, and we certainly have an intimate group here this evening. And finally, to let you know that we will enter names into a draw, and based on the numbers here so far, the percentage or possibility of winning is looking pretty darn good. So our speaker this evening, Matt Corkum. Passionate, full of animation and energy as a speaker, Matthew never backs down from difficult topics. He has always pushed the limits in his life to prosper in a wide range of environments, regardless of living with cerebral palsy. Valedictorian of Acadia's class of 2006, Matthew went on to achieve a PhD in atmospheric science at York University and now works as head meteorologist in Calgary. He not only knows how to track the weather, he knows what it is like to be excluded, bullied, and discriminated against. He is a director of Rocky Mountain Adaptive, a community advisory member of Calgary Adapted Hub, and past member of the City of Calgary's Advisory Committee on Accessibility. He was chosen in 2023 as one of Calgary's top 40 under 40 by Avenue Magazine for his advocacy and speaking on inclusion of those with disabilities. His contagious smile and one-line jokes often lighten the mood as he tells stories of his new hobby, downhill skiing, and he can't get enough powder in the mountains of Alberta and BC. Welcome, Matt, and thank you so much for being with us this evening. I can't believe that it's been 18 years since you graduated, and I bet you can't either. We had a little chuckle about that before folks joined us on the line. And I certainly didn't realize you'd be in Nova Scotia. So I'm glad you're here with us in this beautiful part of the world. And I'm looking forward to some of your one-liners. So let's have a laugh and learn. You've heard of lunch and learn. Let's have a laugh and learn and get to know your process, your life, your journey, and how you've ended up where you are. Over to you.
Thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm so happy to be here. Let me see if I can share my screen here and show a few fun pictures. So I think that should be showing. If it is, we're good, and if it's not, someone yell at me.
You are showing, and we can see it very well. Thank you.
Perfect. So as the introduction said, I am the class of 2006. I was actually on campus today, and a lot of things are the same, but some things are different. I do these speaking events all the time, and the title of my talk is usually Walk a Mile in My Shaky Shoes, Seeing the Ability and Disability. So tonight it's gonna be a bit different. I'll talk for about 20 minutes about my life, successes and challenges. I'll conclude that up and then we'll go to some questions and discussion. So During this first part, there'll be pictures flashing across the screen. I won't directly talk about each one, but you'll get the drift once we get going. So if you're all ready, I invite you to come along and walk a mile in my shaky shoes. On a fall afternoon in 1985, my parents were overwhelmed to learn their beautiful baby boy, 18 months old, would live the rest of his life with spastic cerebral palsy. They weren't sure what that meant, and neither were the doctors. There were a lot of unknowns. Would I ride a bike? Would I drive a car? No one really knew. But luckily, I had parents who took the diagnosis as a best guess rather than a guaranteed outcome. I started aggressive physio soon after diagnosis and did 93 sessions before I turned age 5. That was very instrumental in my early childhood development. Going to school was a challenge for me, though. I remember watching the other kids play soccer or hockey while I broke out in a sweat just trying to catch a gently tossed ball. That was really tough for me. There were other issues too where I couldn't do any handwriting with a pencil, so I depended on a primitive computer. I scribe who would write what I told them to, and then my mom's dedication every evening and weekend to help me get my homework done. It was tough, but we made it work. I owe a lot to my mom, as she spent incredible amounts of time with me. She believed in me when many others may not have. As you can imagine, the kids bullied me, even physically abused me just for being me. The way I talked, walked, and moved. Take a moment and think about that. How would you feel if you were bullied just for being you? I remember the long school bus ride home was the hardest, but as soon as those big yellow school bus doors opened, I ran to my happy place. And for those who don't know me, my happy place is our family farm. That's where everything seemed okay, seemed happy. The first stop would be my giant pumpkin patch to check on my 800-pound beauty, which you'll see here in a moment. That giant pumpkin never failed to put a smile on my face. It was a team effort between Dad and I, and it's where we bonded. Not far beyond the pumpkin patch will be my grandpa, working hard on the farm, and he never seemed to have a bad day. He did everything with a smile on his face. He's a major inspiration in my life, and every time I'm having a bad day, I think of him, the hard work he did, the honesty he lived his life, and he tried to be the best he can. I was just at his house this afternoon, and he's 93 years old. He still lives in that farmhouse at 93. And while he has a little extra help, he's doing awesome. I plan to be that active when I'm 93. How about you all? At the end of grade 12, I was honored to be chosen class valedictorian. I hadn't changed, but suddenly the students saw me through a different lens, and that changed everything. I went from being outcast to top of the class, from an outsider to an insider, you may say. And that's all just because of the way the students saw me. How about you? Have you ever seen yourself or caught yourself judging someone or treating someone differently because of the way they talk or walk or because they're different than you? Of course you have. We all have. That's what humans do. And have you had that moment where something just clicks and you say, why am I doing this? Tolerance, acceptance, and in this case, seeing the ability and disability is a learned kind of perspective in life. So thank you for being here. It means you care. After grade 12 was a scary time for me. I moved off to Acadia. Acadia was great, but I had never been away from home. I never had my safe people near me anymore, my family, and my happy place, the farm. But I was determined to do well at everything I did at university, just like my family taught me to do that all through life so far. During my first year, the accessible learning department, I think they were called something different at that point, arranged for a senior student to be my scribe. Roland, a surfer guy from California, couldn't have been a better fit. I was always stressed out about getting my work done, and he was living the California life. Very good student, but not a worry in the world, it seemed. And we worked the best together to get my work done. After my first year, I applied for a summer job at the Michelin tire plant here in my hometown of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. We went back and forth through the interview process, and they told me they didn't have anything I could do safely. I was like, duh, are you kidding me? I worked my entire life on the farm, arguably the most dangerous job out there. And you're gonna tell me there's nothing I can do? Well, after my dad and my uncle who worked there full time complained to HR, they were willing to give me a chance. And by the end of that summer, I was achieving the highest production at the job and did it safely. Among all the students and the full-time employees at that post. Second year, third year came at Acadia. I ended up working research with Dr. Richard Karsten in the math department towards my honors. And in 2006, I graduated physics with honors as valedictorian. I decided to keep going and went to Dalhousie University to do a master's in oceanography and atmospheric science. University was different, and the students no longer bullied me, but they even started accepting me into their group of friends. Back at Acadia, I'll never forget that time. A friend of mine said, "Matt, we're all going to the bar tonight. Will be fun if you join." Finally, I was included. So I continued on, like I said, at Dow, then on to York University in Toronto, the center of the universe, to do my PhD. In my last year of my PhD, I was approached by a company online who wanted a meteorologist in Calgary. I didn't know what they did. They didn't know much about me, but I said, what do I have to lose? I applied and included a cover letter outlining my disability, but not focusing on it. In February 2013, I moved across the country to the coldest place on earth. It felt like Calgary, Alberta, to start a full-time job with Dynasty Power. Since then, I grew as the head meteorologist, supervising 3 other meteorologists under me, and I enjoy every moment of it. Since working, I go on 1 or 2 big vacations a year, and I've really found my freedom vehicle. As you see here, my bicycle, which I ride all 4 seasons of the year. Last summer, I biked a few thousand kilometers, and in the winter, you'll sometimes catch me on my fat bike in the mountains. But it's a new hobby in winter that has caught my attention: alpine skiing. And they started from someone yelling at me for fat biking on the winter trails. And in March 2000, I got my ears all mixed up. 2021, I went skiing for the first time. And after that, here's my skiing journey. So it soon became apparent I needed to strengthen my body to ski. So I worked with a personal trainer at the gym, first to get off the lift, and then he taught me to use my outriggers, which you'll see in a moment, to get up when I fall down. And recently I've got better at skiing that I want to, for some reason, become a teenager again and do tricks on my skis. So here's the first time I skied in March 2021. You see the poles I'm using, they're called outriggers, so they got little skis on the bottom to give me some extra balance. There I am, 14 times skiing about a year later. You see how much I'm improved, standing up straighter. And this is all due to an organization which I'll talk about in a moment. They taught me to ski. This is it. And here I am, 3 years after skiing skiing through the race gates this past April at Sunshine Village. And for me, skiing has changed my life. I talked about how, as a kid, I wanted to play sports, and this has allowed me to try a sport and progress at a sport and become good at a sport. Here I am doing those teenage tricks on skis, and there I am at the top of the Great Divide and Sunshine Village in Banff. So this organization called Rocky Mountain Adaptive provides accessible experiences to people in the mountains. And they just celebrated their 15-year anniversary last week. And after my third time skiing, I already knew this was impacting my life and I wanted to be more involved. So I became one of the board of directors for this organization and continue to volunteer with them to make sure others get the same experience I have. And now I ski fully independently, do blue runs, and when the conditions allow, black runs, which has been awesome for me. It's opened up an entire different perspective on life, and I can't wait till the snow flies again next year. As I mentioned, I travel quite a bit, and I take pride in showing people that people with disabilities can travel and adventure while being independent and enjoying life. I was in Norway in 2022 in the fall. This was my first big vacation since the pandemic. And I was so excited to finally get on a plane. I had this great tour boat where first I took a train to the Alpine to, and then I would rent a bike from a bike shop, bike down. And when I went to the bike shop, I signed the waiver, signed my life away, and the attendant said, I can't let you go because of your disability. This trail is too challenging for you. I said, what? I bike all the time, all seasons in the Rockies. You're gonna tell me that I can't do this trail? What was the waiver for? He's like, no, I'm sorry. We've had people hurt before. I can't let you go. Arguing back and forth, finally, his supervisor came. I argued with her, and finally, she let me go. A half hour later. And there was a third part of the tour where at the end of the bike trail, you met got to explore a town and go on a boat through the fjords. Well, I did make the boat, but barely. And I tell you this story not because I want you to feel bad for me or even feel for me at all, but I want you to understand the work we have to do, the work I have to do just to live the same life you all do without a disability. And the things I have to advocate for. And that's really what this night is all about. Advocacy and awareness to level the playing field, kind of normalize disability in a way that will allow people to live equal lives and have equal opportunity. And here's a picture of my mom and me in the Okanagan Valley of BC. She took her first summer vacation, I think 2 summers ago, to come visit me, and that's where I took her. So I could talk all night about me, but I think you've heard me talk enough. So I'll end it there, and we can go into a bit of a discussion.
Fantastic, Matt. Thank you. Oh, what a great picture to end on. So I have so many questions and so many, sort of further clarification thoughts that I have on the story that you've just told us. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is just to pause for a moment and see if anyone wants to jump in before me. But the first thing I'm going to ask just before I pause, because I always say I'm going to pause and then I never do, is to ask you, and I think maybe I know the answer with those last couple of slides. Are you cycling as much as you were before the skiing, or have you sort of divided it evenly now?
Should I stop sharing my screen?
You did stop sharing your screen and I can see just you now.
Okay, because I can't see you. Hang on. Oh, there you are. Okay. Got you now. In the winter, I am not cycling as much. I used to do what I call the fat bike circuit, where I'm a meteorologist. So I would look at every BC and Alberta town within 3 hours of Calgary and look where the best conditions were. And there I would go with my fat bike every weekend of the winter. Now I maybe fat bike a handful of times in the winter, and instead I ski every weekend, both days. Like this year, I was on snow 39 days, and I've been not many of those were weekdays, so it's every weekend, and
Absolutely.
I can't get enough of it. So summer I'm biking as much, if not more. Winter, not as much.
I never thought about the connection between being a meteorologist and figuring out the best conditions to do some of the activities that you're doing. So you're way ahead of us in that regard, Matt. Muggs, I see that you say you have a comment to make regarding the skiing, so please join us. Are you there? Can I be unmuted? You should be able to unmute yourself, but just one sec.
Oh, okay, all right, I did it, but it didn't. Okay, now I am here. Matt, in your comment, you referred to the Canadian Adaptive Snow Sport Group being around for about 50 years or so?
15.
Oh, 15. Okay, sorry, because, okay, so when I go back with CADS as back almost 46 years, and I was invited to an event, and I attended in '79, and they found out I not only downhill skied, but I cross-country skied. And I ended up then being the manager for the Paranord team and got to be involved with a lot of grassroots and development. And back in the day when we were taking a chair from a cafeteria somewhere in Canmore, I'll not say where, cutting the legs off it and screwing it onto a pair of skis so that somebody could get out and do a sit ski thing. And now here we are today, like they're coming up with all kinds of adjustable, lightweight carbon fiber things, and some of the seats are even 3D printed and stuff. So it's been a great evolution. But I go back and I've spent many happy days at William Watson Lodge in in that area with our training camps with the para skiers over the years. And it's great that you've been introduced and found that passion. It's great. And in the early days, I actually worked a fair bit with some people in Nova Scotia for para, Nordic, and for Alpine. And they've had some programs going there for quite a while too. So anyway, I wish I wasn't so old and had been around in your days at Acadia, because we might have been able to do some stuff. It's great. I'm so glad to read about you and find out more about your adventure and the amazing contribution you're making.
Thank you very much. I have tried cross-country skiing. Rocky Mountain Adaptive do cross-country skiing.
Yeah.
They have actually a World Cup Paralympian that teaches for them. And
Yeah.
she's Brittany Hudak.
Yeah, I know Brittany. Yeah.
Yeah, so she works for Rocky Mountain Adaptive.
That's so great. That's wonderful.
And she gave my first lesson, and I will continue cross-country skiing.
Great.
But I got so hooked on downhill skiing, I just don't have enough time to do it all.
The beauty about downhill skiing is machines take you up the hill and gravity brings you down, and you're your own engine when you're para skiing or para Nordic skiing. But if you ever want to come to Newfoundland, ski, marble, or do some cross-country touring, or come out and come sailing, come on down. Just bring the good.
I'll let you know, I actually went to the Alps downhill skiing this past March, and I got connected with a adaptive ski instructor there, and he took me 2 days in the Alps skiing. So it's just opened up such a new passion for me that I can go where I want, when I want. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
I'm delighted that you two have connected, and there's a little voice inside of me that's telling me that the two of you are going to connect after this call and stay connected. So that's good stuff. You don't have to be here at the same time, Muggs, as Dr. Corkum was here, but now you've connected, and that's all that matters. So I have a hand up from Pratibha. Did I say that properly?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Matt. I was so excited when I received the invite to attend, but hearing more about you, Matt, we have a lot in common. I'm from Bridgewater. I graduated from Acadia many moons ago, a lot earlier than you. I graduated in '87.
Oh, wow.
I worked one summer at Michelin. My dad used to work there, so my brother is still in the town. He's got a business there, and yeah. So as you were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, Corkum. That name is from South Shore, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So I wasn't really sure, and I thought the more I heard you talk. So anyway, I'm very, very impressed. And really enjoyed your talk. Also wanted to let you know I work with Nova Scotia Works. It's an employment services center. So my background after Acadia, I went back to school, did a postgraduate diploma in human resource management. So my whole career has been HR, but I recently did a career shift, and now I'm working with a Nova Scotia Works Employment Services Center, and my center specializes in working with people with disabilities or disability, right? So having said that, this is really exciting for me because we work with so many different people who come and present some of the barriers, challenges. And one of my roles before I moved into a manager for employer services role was employer engagement specialist. And that was to connect with employers directly and to talk to them about some of the clients that we have. And the employers are scared. They don't know what they don't know, right? So it's making them aware of what the challenge, not just making them aware of learning a little bit more. Nobody's perfect. I always say that people are going to make mistakes. It's okay. It's just that people want to know that they're trying and they're giving opportunities, right? So you mentioned Michelin. The first time they said no, but then your uncle was able to to connect with them to get you hired?
My uncle and my dad have both been there like 25 years at the time, and my uncle was a supervisor. So I think he carried a little more weight. And, that, and even some of the employees that knew me, when they heard that they weren't going to give me a chance, because it was a program, as I think you know, if your parent worked there and you attended 1 year at university, you were almost guaranteed a summer job. So when they turned me down, it wasn't like, oh, you didn't get the job. It was, oh, they're actually denying you the opportunity. And all the work I did on the farm, like you saw me driving the tractor, you saw me doing this and that. We we were in the camp where we knew I could do it. Like my dad wouldn't have wanted me there if he didn't think I was safe. But if I could do this work on the farm, there was no reason I couldn't do it in the factory. And like I say, by the end of the summer, I was the top producer on that post. So it just showed that they had a lot to learn.
Exactly. And I'm so glad that you were there to teach that a little bit too. Like it's about asking, how are you going to do the job and so forth. So that's one of the things that my organization does do a lot. And we're, advocates actually for the people that we work with. So we were able to get about 400 people hired last year, actually alone in last year. So it's a really good organization. We're looking at having an event. I may, I'm going to be bringing this back to my team, but we may be reaching out just to let you know to get a little bit more information about coming in as a speaker for our event. Where we host, it's the International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd. And we always do a big event, and it's going to be a full day. And so anyway, so stay tuned.
Yeah, connect with me if it works out. I do a lot of these speaking events all the time, and I'm always looking for new opportunities.
That's awesome. Very good. No, it was very interesting. What's the organization? You said you joined the organization as a board of directors. What's the organization in Calgary?
Rocky Mountain Adaptive. They're in Canmore, Alberta.
Okay,
If you
okay.
just Google them, they have a fantastic website, and
Okay.
yeah, they offer like every accessible activity you can think of, from hiking to kayaking to rock climbing to skiing, fat biking.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's
they
good. Yeah.
do. And we've just reached $1 million charity this year. So,
Wow.
and, it's really fantastic and so much positive energy. So
Yeah.
I just, every time I leave a board meeting, I'm just gleaming with smiles.
That's amazing. That's amazing. One more thing in common. My son moved to Calgary in 2019, graduated from Acadia as well. And so he loves it out there and he took on skiing and I thought, oh boy, and I don't know, he skied almost every weekend this winter. So he loves it and I'm really happy to hear that. So it's good. It's beautiful there. So when I retire, who knows, after grandkids, I may move out there myself, but
It's funny your reaction to that, because I just did an interview for a magazine about accessible skiing, and one of the questions was, has everyone supported you in your ski journey? And I said, yes, however, my mother is hesitant because she's a non-skier, and I kind of amp it up a little and kind of tell her, oh, today we did this black diamond.
I worry every time he tells me. I'm like, sometimes go tell me after. Don't tell me before. I'll worry the whole weekend. So that's great.
So there's another great connection. So thank you for that, Prativa, to let us in on the work that you're doing. So Matt, I have a question I have tons of questions for you. So I'll try to make sure that I leave room for others. I do want to acknowledge though that when you shared that the Rocky Mountain Adaptive reached their $1 million, you got a hand clapping from our VP Advancement, our philanthropist on the line. You got the round of applause from Nancy. So one of the things you said that I want to pick a little bit on, I want to dig in a little bit, is you said that skiing brought a completely different perspective on life for you. And when you said that, I have to be honest, from the beginning of your presentation and right through your story until you became a skier, you have a pretty darn good perspective on life. So I'm wondering what it was about skiing that was different or that changed that perspective and how.
Yeah, so I mentioned how I used to watch the kids play sports, and I wanted so bad to play sports, and I couldn't. This is sure I biked in my life, and I biked countless kilometers. I know, but this is the first sport where I feel like I started, I was horrible at it, and I saw that progression, just like teenagers or kids would see that progression every week. They work at something and improve, improve, improve. And for me, it's been that improvement to the point where I can ski alone now. Or if some random person, like I remember a bartender, I spend a lot of time in Fernie, BC, and I met this bartender just from having beers at the brewery. It was ski bums too. And I didn't know him very well, and he just was like, do you want to go skiing tomorrow? And just a couple of years ago, I would have couldn't have said yes. And even in the first year or two of skiing, I couldn't have said yes. But for me to be able to say yes to him and feel confident and happy about it just changes everything. Like another experience like that is that, as I said, I, for whatever reason, has started to learn to do tricks on my skis. And I actually know the reason, and we can get into that later, but I was in the terrain park in Fernie skiing off the boxes and just having a time on the easiest box. And that night I was out in the town and the freestyle Fernie coach come up to me and said, I saw you in the terrain park today. You were awesome. And just those kind of things, people that I look up to and think, oh, I'll never get there. When I can connect with those people and just have so much freedom to do what I want, just has changed everything. Like I say in some of my talks, people don't realize by giving kids or people of any age access to those activities, it's not just getting them on the ski hill, it's giving them the physical ability, mental ability, and confidence that they can carry through the rest of their life. I'm a better advocate, better at my job as a meteorologist, better friend and family member, just because of that independence I've gained as a skier.
Just wow. I want to come back to your comment about I'm not sure why I was doing tricks on skis, so I'm not letting that one go. Go ahead, Pratima, go ahead. You're on mute.
Thank you. Just a question around your employer. You said that they reached out to you online. Right? They reached out to you online.
On LinkedIn, they basically found a paper I had presented at a conference.
Okay.
And then it was on a topic they're very interested in. And then they tracked me down on LinkedIn.
Okay. And so can you tell us a little bit about your employer? Like how are they as far as, when they interviewed you and how are they currently, as far as accessibility and inclusive and diverse, and did you have any challenges when you first started there? Like did you have to teach them, train them, or were they open? I'm just curious to see.
I mean, as any workplace, I think there's work to be done. But when I started with them, they were very small. Like there was only 8 people. And it wasn't really a thing to be inclusive necessarily. It was just whatever happens, happens. And obviously they accepted me for who I was. And if I needed something, they provided it. But as we've grown now, from 7 or 8 employees to I think 80 employees in like 10 or 11 years, we actually have more of an HR presence and stuff, and we have become more diverse. So I think I've kind of nudged that along the way, but it wasn't necessarily something they come to me and said, "Oh, can you help us with that?" And admittedly, when I started with them, it wasn't really on my radar either. Like this has really become front and center with me kind of in the last 5 to 7 years. Um, and I mean, I think if I was applying now to a job, which I'm not, I'm very happy where I am. But if I was, it would be a lot more front and center for me, where back then I just wanted to make sure I could do the job. And once that was kind of determined, then everything else just kind of fell into place.
So question for you,
Thank
Matt,
you.
on after your experience with Michelin, do you know if that sort of kick-started them into that mindset of hiring people with disabilities and listening to the applicant as to whether or not they thought they were able to do the job and them not making the determination for them?
To be honest, this is a major flaw on my part. I don't know. And I keep meaning to reach out to them about potentially doing a talk for them or something.
Awesome.
But I know nothing. So I
Sure,
don't
sure.
answer for you.
When you reach out, you could start off with something along the lines of, "Hey, remember me? I was the top production in the year, whatever, whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
a good intro. Good segue.
And I mean that they obviously knew that they screwed up, I think, because not many students get hired at Christmas time, and they hire me 2 Christmases in a row for like 10 days on my break to make some extra money. And there were 6 students on that post in the summer and only one at Christmas. And I was the one.
Were you on the wire side or the production side, tire
The
side?
production side.
Production side. I was on
I-
the wire side.
I appreciate the question, though. I have family members that work their summers in Michelin as well, so I appreciate the question. Listen, we're very quickly running out of time. We still have quite a few minutes, or 8 minutes left. So I want to make sure I get to this question, Matt, before we finish. And I'm not sure exactly how to ask it. But one of the takeaways that I always like to have from these sessions is some sort of call to action. And I'm hearing the call to action from this conversation around advocacy. And so I want to ask you, what does that mean? Like, as an able-bodied person, how can I begin to do some advocacy work in this arena? What does it look like? Give me some pointers or some suggestions on what we as a community can contribute to your process.
Right, and I think someone brought it up tonight is we're all gonna make mistakes. We can't change everything overnight, but we can work at it. So one of the big things is when you see a problem, bring it up to whoever it is, whether like I was on campus today and something that recently has been on my radar that I always talk about this and I say it in this way, which I think is very good. When you're able bodied, most of this stuff isn't on your radar. And it's kind of like that time you bought a yellow Volkswagen. Before you bought it, no, there were none nowhere. But after you bought the yellow car, everyone had the yellow car. So look for things and try to educate yourself on what that means. Like one of the things I've been noticing, well, I can do stairs okay, but many people can't. And it's unreal the amount of businesses or classrooms or whatever that have one staff. Like, so that's one thing. Put that on your radar and think about that as you're walking around somewhere. I think the other thing is to look to the experts for education. Like inclusion and diversity is becoming big and it's admirable, but these online courses can only do so much. It's what we connect with is stories. When I tell you a story, you're gonna remember that and you're going to think about that every time you encounter that, like that bike story. You're not gonna forget that. So wherever possible, I think bring experts in as speakers to help what I like to say normalize disability. Because I don't think anyone out there is maliciously or trying to be mean to people with disabilities. But as humans, we're naturally afraid of different. So if something is different than us, we're gonna shy away from it, we're gonna avoid it, and we're gonna go to what we know. So the more we can educate ourselves, pick up on little things and make that your mission. Okay, I see this going on in our office. It happens all the time. Next time I hear it, maybe I don't single someone out in a meeting, but I pull them aside and say, you know, that's not really inclusive. Like, you could say it this way, or you could say it that way, or things that's more the language around it. But I mean, it has to start somewhere. So I think educate yourself around topics and realize you can't be an expert overnight, but you can make a small difference and find your niche, something you're passionate about, and make sure you aren't afraid to tell someone your thought on that in a nice way. Like,
I need to work on the nice way part. Um, so my question is, how did you know I had a yellow Volkswagen?
mm, yeah, actually.
I did. I did. It was like,
Everybody knows you have a yellow Volkswagen, don't they?
what's that?
So everybody knows you have a yellow Volkswagen.
Yeah, exactly. But Matt, I'm going to tell you that just as recent as convocation, a week and a half ago, one of our convocation speakers, the message that she delivered that I heard loud and clear was well, it wasn't exactly this word for word, but this is how I'm wording it. Don't let politeness get in the way of your passion and advocacy. And it was a a lot of information around that message, but that was very clearly her message. And I'm hearing you say, be as polite as you can, but to take those steps and be part of that advocacy by simply asking questions or by simply pointing out things.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. I go into medical school in Calgary and talk about disability and health. And one of the questions I got is from a first year med student is, how do I talk to my kids about disability? Because they'll see someone on the street and say something stupid or something I'm embarrassed about. And I just told the guy to start talking more about disability at home and encourage them to ask questions. And when they do something wrong or disrespectful, don't get mad, turn it into a learning moment. Because if you get mad, it turns it into like a scary moment or a negative moment. And then you have kind of a cloud of negativity around it. So I think turning it into more an educational moment when you see something um done wrong, like I think you should be somewhat polite, but don't be afraid to make a little noise about it.
Absolutely. And I honestly, first of all, want to say that the hour has gone by way too quickly. But secondly, to say what a brilliant message to end off on. Turn that opportunity, turn that moment into a learning opportunity. And that's great advice. So I thank you for that. It is 8 o'clock, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of everybody's time, especially yours, Matt. You've got a day ahead of you. You've got another presentation with another group on campus tomorrow, actually. So just sharing that with our viewers tonight, that Matt is continuing to do his good work tomorrow with us, and we thank you as one of our alum, one of our contributors to this program. So thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. As I said, it is recorded. Pratibha, you might not have heard that at the very beginning, but it will be posted in our virtual library, so you can share it possibly in your network, in your employment network. And Muggs, I suspect you'll probably use it as well. And I'm just going to end off by saying that we normally do a draw for some swag that we send out to our participants, but we're going to send something to both Pratibha and Muggs because that's what we do. And of course, I'll be in touch, Matt, with a thank you gift for you for sharing your time with us. So everybody, thank you very much. Matt, thank you so much. You have inspired me. I've learned so much more about you, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you for being with us.